the Around the NFL podcast. Rated 55.5 by PFF.
Ciao from the Chris Wessling podcast studio. It's Around the NFL. I am Dan Hanzus. Here are heroes, Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. Week 7, and you know we've been doing this for a long time, so there are times where we could be cynical old bastards and complain about the games and the week that was.
Never.
This is not one of those weeks.
Fun week.
No. This was a fun week of football, and just goes to show you when you looked at the slate heading into Sunday, it was a little meh, and yet we got a bunch of corkers on Sunday. A lot of games going down to the wire, Greggy, and ahead of hopefully, when we close this show out, another scorcher between the Dolphins and Eagles, and I probably just jinxed that, but so far, so great.
Never a jinx. It was alive in the newsroom today. It was alive in the Chris Wessling podcast studio before we tape with some hot-button media talk that we'll have to save for the off-season media legacy podcast.
We definitely trend in our pre-show conversations to things that couldn't be put out there in the public space, which is fine. I don't agree with Jason Zumwalt's concept that we graded 55% from PFF. That's basically like the most of the New York Giants offensive line. That's not good.
That's troubling.
That's a tough one.
Are we that leaky?
That's a bad number, but the thing is we have, about 11 weeks to figure it out or whatever. All right, so how do we want to do this today? I think what we should do is, even though the benchmark or kind of the hallmark of this week is all these great games that went down to the wire, let's start with one that was not close, one that was decided by really the end of the first quarter, because what it potentially means in our league to Baltimore.
Lamar to throw on 2nd and goal. Halftime, slings it back in the end zone. Touchdown, Ravens! Mark Andrews in the back of the end zone, and the Ravens are back on the scoreboard.
His old reliable throws it out there for him and lets him go get it. One of the most sure-handed tight ends that I ever seen. It looked like it's a party, and Detroit wasn't invited.
It was one of the most surprising blowouts of the 2023 season. The Ravens scored 4 touchdowns before the Lions even had a first down. It was a stunning stomping by the home team over a fellow division leader, 38-6 in favor of the Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium. Lamar Jackson threw for 357 and 3 touchdowns, ran for another, nearly perfect passer rating. Greggy, the Ravens, they're one of your 8 or so favorite teams. And so you must be over the moon right now, unless it clashes with the Lions, which I also believe is in your top 8. If this was a MySpace situation, take us through where you're at after watching this game.
I told you guys this game was coming, that this Ravens team was a Super Bowl contender all week, that they've got the bones of a team that can be great. Not saying they've shown it all.
You did say that.
But
I agree.
the underlying elements were all there today. This was a crazy game for them to have 16 first downs before the Lions had any, but have 325 yards to when the Lions had 13. At that point, I think the Lions had only run like 13 plays or something. So you can't repeat this sort of performance, but seeing Lamar Jackson back there with a ton of time, his offensive line winning big time against this Detroit defensive line, and then when they did get some pressure on him making magic like he does, was really outstanding to see, because Odell Beckham was getting open. I know he only ended up with 5 for 49, but he looked like he had a little more juice. John Harbaugh said to the broadcasters during the week that he looked more like himself. Thought that was good. Like Zay Flowers open down the field. Andrews looked as healthy and with as much juice as he's had all season. And you just see an offense that, to me, has a really high ceiling paired with, oh, by the way, a defense who's been really injured and yet ranks in the top 4 in basically every DVOA category, and it all came together today.
I think it's easy to forget that this is a new offense, that it's a completely different approach under Todd Monken, and that you wanted to arrive right away. And they've been a frustrating watch on that side of the ball. But like today, they hadn't crossed 237 yards passing all year, and it looked like it. Today, an explosion. I think it's super encouraging because it came against a super quality team that's really well coached on both sides of the ball. And I would also give credit to Mike McDonald, who you mentioned on Thursday's show, that Harbaugh went out and got him as his defensive coordinator post Wink Martindale, And a lot of this was what they did to Detroit's offense, too.
Absolutely. I don't know if there's any defense in the league that is better at disguising their looks before the snap and then getting free rushers to quarterbacks and then be either confused, and holding the ball, or them just not knowing which guy is going to come free. Because it's not like, other than Clowney, anyone on the front has really been playing that well this year, like in their one-on-one matchups, but they really cause havoc, and that's a recipe for Jared Goff to struggle. And I don't think he had a disastrous game. It was just 28-0, once 4 drives were over, and they called enough really good defensive plays to scramble a good offensive coordinator and a good coach in Goff and Ben Johnson.
Yeah, this is what you were saying kind of heading into this week, that you saw them as a absolute Super Bowl contender. The reason I push back against it is because this doesn't totally stun me in the sense that when everything's clicking with this team that they can be special, but they've also blown 2 games horrendously. We were at London last week. They're just kind of just kind of finding a way to get by a bad Titans team that lost their quarterback. So there's this weird DNA in this team that makes me struggle trusting them, but this isn't the week to talk about that, because when you welcome in a Lions team that was playing as well as any team in football and absolutely pants them, you have to be feeling very good about yourselves. Now, Dan Campbell's the head coach of the Lions. It's always good to hear from Dan, especially after some type of seismic happening around his team. This one, a negative one. Let's see what the coach had to say.
Those guys, they played well. They kicked our ass, and it's a credit to them. Lamar beat us. He hammered us with his arm. He threw the ball extremely well. He ran when he needed to, and we did not handle it well.
Yeah, and Lamar, here's a stat. Over 70% completion percentage in every start but one this year, which is, again, Greg, kind of points to he's been as good as we've seen him probably since his MVP season, and yet the offense has been enigmatic at times.
And he's been part of that with some turnover.
And he's had moments that have helped sealed losses and things of that nature. But he's playing at a high level, and if they can get on a run here, look out.
Yeah, I think you look at what they do on offense, and they get guys open for Todd Monken, and yet the running game was effective enough. Gus Edwards is 14 for 64. Justice Hill had a couple nice runs in there, and Lamar scrambles. And you just think you can win games in different types of ways, because Roquan Smith, I just keep hammering every game. He's a force multiplier. That ended up being such a great trade because he makes everyone around him better. He broke up a couple passes in the red zone that were key today. He just is flying all over the field, and you can tell he makes his teammates better. I'm not worried about the Lions, partly because of the schedule. They play one team with a winning record the rest of the season. So it's the Cowboys in Week 17.
But it will worry you in the sense that, yes, and they beat their previous 4 opponents by at least 14 points each. So they were kicking ass themselves. But it does plant that seed of doubt when they get to January football, which I believe that they will. I mean, are they going to be maybe a paper division champion when you see something like this? I'm not going that far. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I don't see them as
you got stomped here.
They did, and also they're a team on a journey. Like the Ravens have been in these battles, in these wars, and have been dealing with playoff type seasons for years on end. Detroit's in a new place. Their coach is in a new place. They are, all of them. And I know I don't want to just hand out mulligans left and right, but I'm willing just to let the Lions sit with this and see where they go, because the larger sample size of what they've been all season are things that you can rely on. They're both of their lines. Like I kind of feel like Detroit will learn from this versus go into a dark skid.
I have a question about their defensive line, though. They've beaten up on some bad offensive lines this year, and they got crushed today. And some Lions fans are a little on this, too. So it was like no pass rush, plus a lot of injuries at cornerback. They had a couple injuries going into this game at cornerback. They had another one during the game. So that was part of it. No pass rush plus bad cornerbacks. You get fried.
All right. That's how we start, with a bud whipping. Now let's move.
Before we move on, Dan, you told me to get in your ear and remind you about a tweet you wanted to fly from the Ravens.
Oh, yeah.
An X.
Then thank you, Eric Roberts. Fly up the tweet. Mark.
Yes.
Bud.
Oh, jeez.
Bud.
What?
We got to get out of this thing where I don't know how you
Wait a second.
How you got farmed into this for NFL.com. Where you're doing these picks every week. And here it is, the tweet from the Ravens. You sure about that? Week 7 expert picks. And you are one of 6, 12, what is it? 12 NFL media employees that all picked the Lions to win.
Yeah.
This isn't like you, Sessler.
Hive mind. I got pulled into.
Wait
you
a
know what?
second.
And I already had promised to you guys that my new strategy with these picks.
So what happened?
Well, I don't know.
Well, wait a second. I'm throwing the flag on the Ravens. This is a new level of chicanery from the social media department. They went and just looked around at various organizations of who got it right and who got it wrong. So, for instance, they find 5 NFL Network people that got it wrong. But that means 5 got it right. It was like a pick-em game. Because I was like, half the people picked the Ravens for sure. They were favored in this game. And so they just picked and choose different people from different places and put it all up there.
Hey, man.
Yeah, see, I actually did pick the
I'm throwing
underdog.
the flag.
To the victor
I picked
goes
the
the
under.
spoils.
But again, to your
roughing
point,
the Sessler.
yeah, this exercise, to your point, I only hear about my, my toils in this when I am felled.
That's what I'm saying.
It's like we got Jeremiah and Shook on there, but then we also have Connor Orr, Albert Breer, Brinson. It makes no sense.
Greg doesn't like media houses being together.
Greg also wants him to. There's the Ravens logo next to Greg, and then the brand is built a little stronger.
Greg called them a Super Bowl team. That whole thing. Where's that?
I did pick them to win. One of the few games I got right today. But you could literally do that with any game, any win all season. You could find someone that picked.
Mark, can I offer as a longtime colleague?
Help me out. Yeah. What can
I was approached by the same individual for this assignment.
Same.
Which was optional. And you know what I said?
I just say yes to things.
I said pass.
I just say yes to things. Oh, can you come help me move? Like, sure. Throw up my whole effing Saturday just to go help someone move a bunch of furniture up and down a staircase.
When?
No, not recently.
Never helped me move.
I know. Actually,
I love
didn't
you,
do that
but you are
recently.
not the person I would expect has been doing a lot of that.
I didn't help do that recently for anyone, but I'm just saying that's the kind of thing I might be like cajoled into.
I can't picture the Cess dog taking a piano up 5 flights.
Not anytime soon.
I would potentially ask Mark just to hear the excuse he came up with to not do it. Because it would be creative.
I'd come up with some excuse.
It would be very much a lie as well. But
wait a
again,
minute.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, you
could
would
do this as
understand
well.
the lie, so
You have to just tell him you can't do it. Tell him something came up
I know.
with your daughter.
My daughter.
Your 24-year-old
She's
daughter.
very busy.
Who is
She needs a lot of help all the time.
reconnecting
Right.
with her father.
It's time to reconnect. Through all those years I said yes to the NFL, it's time to say yes to someone else.
Thank you. It's that easy.
Right, Eric. Thank you.
Let's get you know who on the line. All right, let's head to we got Mark nice and lubed up now, so let's head talk some Browns football.
Hudson and Harris, Browns from the 1. This is the game. Out of the eye, they need the touchdown. Hunt and Harris. Walker gives to Kareem Hunt. Pushing, touchdown! Kareem Hunt got it across the goal line!
He didn't wait for the official call.
Hunt, are the cardiac kids back? Kareem Hunt getting it over the goal line. The huge touchdown on 4th down. You knew you could run it at that point. It didn't matter. That was the last play.
Oh, yeah.
Bongo time. Wait, 2 weeks in a row?
Well, I think the Jets got it last week, as they deserved.
No.
Did it, was it Cleveland? I thought it was-
Cleveland got the Bongos last
they
week
really?
too.
Yeah, Jets got it's on in New York City.
Right.
Feels a little strong.
Well,
to give
it's
to the
been an
Browns 2 weeks
interesting-
in
I
a
mean,
row,
this
but-
was a bongo-worthy game.
Yeah.
And that was bongo-worthy call from Andrew Siciliano, our friend and colleague for WKRK. Andrew filling in for the great. Andrew filling in for the great.
Jim Donovan. He pointed at Mark, though. So that was
Andrew filling
Jim
in for
Donovan.
the great.
Absolutely. Sorry. Yes.
Are you okay, Mark?
No, the wonderful Jim Donovan. Yes.
Kareem Hunt just broke the lane of the goal line. Where are the Bongos?
keep it going.
What are we doing? We're shutting down the Bongos?
The band went away.
If you're going to play the Bongos, you keep it playing.
Yeah.
Song's not that long. We had a pause
I know.
there for a second.
we did have like a 25-second Jim Donovan pause. So.
That was not my fault. Kareem Hunt just broke the lane of the goal line in the final seconds in Indianapolis. The deciding score in one of the wildest back-and-forth affairs of the year. The Browns forced the Gardner Minshew fumble on the ensuing drive, clinching a 39-38 win over the Colts. Mark, we'll get into the latest in the enduring Deshaun Watson injury saga in a bit, but let's start with the game. How did your Cleveland Browns pull this one off?
If you look at the last 2 weeks, and maybe Andrew Siciliano is something of a lucky charm.
Does he sound younger when he's making these calls?
I think he feels younger.
I think he's Benjamin Buttoning through this Browns
doing
season.
something you love.
Yeah.
It's taking the years off him, because these are 2 games.
Imagine a 24-year-old Siciliano. Yum.
Spicy. That's what they say. That's what they've said. But
Yes, please.
2 weeks in a row, these are games that other versions of the Cleveland Browns, and they're a weird team, would have lost, just flat out lost. They would have found a way to lose last week to the Niners. And there were so many opportunities for them to lose. And there's a lot of particulars to this game and how it went. And you've got, 3 weeks in a row where Deshaun Watson is not readily available. And when he was in there today for a little bit, very unattractive as a player and did not do a good job. But this was the game that I've waited for. Myles Garrett has these moments of greatness, and we see them. But it's the one thing that I find a little different between him and if you go to Pittsburgh, in certain times in Baltimore, but especially in Pittsburgh, like TJ Watt, where TJ Watt's sort of specialty, his magic power is the offense isn't producing or there are ups and downs. TJ Watt's it's the late in the fourth quarter. I'm going to do something as a defensive player to completely change this game and add to what you think about TJ Watt. And I always felt like Myles Garrett, he has those moments, but they come in losses or they come in games where it's he's compiling stats where it's it's not his fault, but he's not in a game-changing moment. Today, though, the first half of Myles Garrett, it was the greatest half I've ever seen him play in my life. 2 incredibly important sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a play, if you've not seen this, because this typically gets flagged because players aren't able to do this physically. Myles Garrett, and I'll tell you one time when they were playing the Chargers a number of years ago, I went downtown LA to meet with a young guy who was a Browns writer, and I walked in the hotel, and Myles Garrett walked by me. And it's this is literally a completely different type of human being than wherever I came from. He just looks like a completely different specimen. And he's able to do things with his body. And today was one of the best examples I've seen of that. In a key moment where the Colts were lining up for a field goal that kept hanging around with the Browns, Myles Garrett just literally leaps over the offensive linemen, multiple offensive linemen, and doesn't touch them, so there's no penalty, and then just seamlessly waltzes in and blocks the kick.
It reminded me, I tweeted about this, I X'd about this, that Lawrence Taylor in the original Tecmo Bowl,
yes,
he could do that too.
You could always do it with
not
Lawrence
kick
Taylor
an extra
in Tecmo.
point or a field goal against the Giants Tecmo Bowl because he had this otherworldly ability to get to the kicker. Only Myles Garrett's a real person, and he's doing this, and as Greg, you would say, and it's one of your favorite terms, and you've already used it once, a force multiplier.
I do need to get away from that, but a couple of sacks on the game too, like a pass defense. He is everywhere, and he's everywhere on a day. And you can explain it to me where their defense, has a lot of regrets that they give up 456 yards to the Minshew Colts. Now,
how did that happen?
Part of that is 16 drives, but it was 6.8 yards per play. How did that happen, Mark?
I thought
What?
Yes, it's the right time for that because the Minshew of last week with the lost fumble and 3 interceptions where you're maybe the Minshew thing doesn't last for more than a couple weeks. Totally effective on the ground today. I thought he played one of the better Minshew games I've seen. Jonathan Taylor, who we were waiting to show up, had a couple big moments today where you're wait a minute. The idea that Jonathan Taylor might not come back and be the same guy, incorrect. He looks that way. And I think there were defensive breakdowns today for Cleveland, which is...
That's the way you beat the Schwartz defense, is you throw some bombs, because they're going to be aggressive.
Let's talk about Deshaun Watson here, because it's fair to wonder, how the injury is being handled, what the truth is behind the injury, and it got even murkier this week. So it looked like he was trending toward not playing this week. Then late in the week, he practiced, and then all of a sudden he's on the field in this game. But not for long. He's struggling. Then he goes into the blue tent to be checked for a concussion, ruled not to have suffered a concussion by the independent neurologist, but then does not come back in the game, and P.J. Walker finishes it. Here is what Deshaun Watson had to say after his head coach, Kevin Stefanski, said they kept him out to protect himself.
No, it was just a medical decision with the staff and everyone that's part of making a decision, and they felt like the decision was best to, let PJ go in and finish the game to make sure the team, it benefits the team.
It's weird because the question was what was the decision? Did you think you could make your shoulder worse? And Stefanski had said, look, I made the decision. Watson says it's a medical decision. It just, And Stefanski also said Watson will play next week. So
Did he hurt his shoulder today?
So-
I'm confused.
he didn't answer it. That's why
Right.
that was the answer to that question.
And the Browns never completely clarified that, but on the play where he went out, like he does hit his helmet, the back of his helmet hard on the ground, and so I could see where a concussion concern would come up. He also though was like,
But they said he passed the protocol.
so he passed that, but his throwing arm was sort of hanging, the way that we saw Anthony Richardson like a week
on the
ago.
same play.
It was just hanging. I thought maybe I think he aggravated. The Browns are conservative with their injuries, maybe more than some teams would be. I would say the other thing would be a bigger concern is like he threw a terrible interception. And nearly threw a second that simply was an interception. Just was
right, but isn't it because he's hurt? Like,
so I think the thing is like he's not healthy, and he
should have never played.
He said this week that he may not be healthy this entire season because of the shoulder thing. So I don't. They're a little bit lost at quarterback.
What's he on the field today for?
I don't know.
I don't know. They certainly aren't handling this very well. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
At this point,
It's very strange because I feel like the Browns are having one season, and this is a season of crazy wins the last couple weeks. It's a season of huge defense, and now it's a season of like, wow, PJ Walker not exactly playing well, but finding a way to get a win. And then Deshaun Watson is off to the side, and he's sort of having this other season.
Yeah.
And they're like not the same
You're right.
seasons. And I want you to, speak some on like the other Browns because you were enjoying this game. I haven't seen you as excited in the newsroom watching a Browns game in a while, and they're a legit team. I just don't know. I don't know where they're going, but they are a legit team.
They're. I will say this because I think Stefanski's sort of been like a hot seat contender. I think he's done a good job coaching this team up through a quarterback abyss. Someone like Jerome Ford, who came in today and 69-yard touchdown, Gallup on the opening drive. You don't have Nick Chubb. You don't have your starting quarterback or Nick Chubb. And you're getting these performances from other people around them. So they're enjoyable for that element of resiliency. And I think Stefanski, who did not do a good job coaching this team a year ago, I think he did actually with Jacoby Brissett. But in general, like your coach of the year from a couple years ago didn't look like it. But
basically,
done
he's
a nice job
He's a good
couple
coach
weeks in a
whenever
row.
Deshaun Watson's not playing.
I think so too.
Here's the thing. To me, what it feels like, it's not dissimilar to how I feel about watching my own team right now, where they're a fun watch because they're a little plucky, especially with PJ Walker playing. But if you take out Nick Chubb, and if Deshaun Watson's going to be an injury-riddled mess, like there's a ceiling on the season.
Oh, there's a
the
ceiling.
The goal here, of course, is to win the Super Bowl. So, like this is as fun as these games are. Like they need, if there's a path to Watson getting healthy, they need to get on that right path because that's what can make them truly dangerous in the AFC. Because the Walker thing is that there's an expiration date there.
That's going to limit you.
But how about that, Mark?
4-2 though, so
Two wild games back.
So now maybe they've bought
back-to-back
themselves some
weeks.
time if they do need to sit Watson. They found a way to win enough games that maybe they're in the mix when he comes back.
They already had their bye, and they were resting the shoulder then, so they can't seem to make progress on that front. But in terms of winning football, what are they? 4-2 now.
4-2.
How about that, Mark? How about that?
I approve.
The Bills fans, like Eric Roberts, do not approve of the arc of this season so far. Tremendously frustrating, and that continued at Foxborough today.
A second and goal to go from the left hash one. Andrews over the football to snap it back. Jones has it. Looks to his right. Throws it to the right. Got it! Touchdown! He's got it! Patriots!
There he is, Mike Gesicki off the side of a milk carton, catching the game winner on a little look in from Jones to the right slot. And it is the drive that Mac Jones has needed.
I mean, we're acting like Mike Gesicki's like Tony Gonzalez in 1997.
That crowd was going crazy.
Where is Mike Gesicki been? Bob Sochi in the Ascension Powerade bottle with the call for WBZ. Mac Jones, give him that extension, Greggy. Threw a 1-yard touchdown
You would like
pass
that, wouldn't you?
to Mike Gesicki with 12 seconds to play, and the Patriots steal one away from the Bills, 29-25. Mark, a weird one for me personally, tracking from afar, because I'm just kind of following this game on the scroll. The Cleveland Indy game was the same thing. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
There are multiple points where it appeared the game was decided in favor of each of the teams. How did the underdog Pats come out ahead?
I think this was sort of the team that if you were Bill Belichick and his like small cadre of assistant coaches, this is the team that you thought you would get.
His family members, basically.
Essentially his sons and, like friends that keep secrets for
A
him.
nephew. Yeah, 7.
It doesn't look like it because if you look at, like, for instance, like Ramondre Stevenson's line box score, like, doesn't look impressive, but I thought he ran the ball as well as he has all season. And Mac Jones played a better game than he's played all season. And, like, they got little contributions on offense, and their defense looked tighter. And you're getting a Bills team that I don't know if it's their DNA because things change, but this is weeks in a row where they come out flat. They looked completely out of sync early on. They have scored. What is going on here with one of these numbers? They've been outscored like an insane amount in the first half, and they just to come out as a flat team.
Well, they really had no business winning last week
No.
against the Giants in their building on Sunday Night Football. The week before didn't go well, Greg, and now you can't find a way to close out the Patriots. And as soon as you saw Matt Milano go out, I wondered what was going to happen with their defense. And again, I didn't see the game, but I'm just curious. Like, is that one of those Jenga pieces where they're going to struggle to get big stops all season without kind of the heart and soul of their D?
Well, you let Mac carve you up 25 for 30, 272 yards. In the second half of that game, the only stop they get was on a forced fumble, and otherwise the Patriots had a field goal, a touchdown, and a touchdown. And the Patriots are up in this game, rather, 22-10. They just went on a touchdown drive in the fourth quarter. They've played a very clean game, Mark.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Then the Bills get a 2-minute, 5-play, 75-yard drive. Then they force a fumble, and then Josh Allen ends up running it in. And you think, like, there is no way at that point that the Bills' defense lets the Patriots get to overtime even, much less lose the game. So that's very surprising to me. Like, what did you see out of the Bills' defense here?
They allowed a team that's looked completely dead on arrival on offense to make plays, and they got ran on in key situations. Mac Jones played, I thought, the best game he's played all season, and it's just like, I don't know where this Patriots team was, but this is a Bills team that did not live up to the moment today. I mean, this is against the Jaguars, against the Giants, and today, 3 weeks in a row, they've come out flat. And I guess it just like in the scope of these seasons, it leaves me, I already think we had some suspicions about the Bills' floor when they don't kind of operate the way that they should. And it's just an example of, like, I don't know, is this team going to go win multiple games on the road in the playoffs? It doesn't feel like it to me. And I think Josh Allen today was one of the reasons they didn't perform well. It's like, it's not always in spite of everyone else. It's like Josh Allen sinks them at times. I feel like it just was not a great game. He did not lift them today.
Very surprising against this team, though.
Right.
They've owned the Patriots in this McDermott-Belichick rivalry.
Here's some stats. So the Pats averaged 4 yards a carry, which doesn't seem like a big deal because everybody should do that. But they had been averaging less than 3.5 a game going into this game. So they ran the ball, like you were saying. Mac Jones was pressured on just 20% of his dropbacks, according to ESPN. So he was able to sit back and find open receivers
against a bad Patriots line.
So they weren't doing the job on defense, and on offense, the slow starts and Eric, we talked a little bit before the show that they only seem to be able to get things going when they fall behind. Over the past 3 games, this team has averaged less than 6 points in the first 3 quarters of the game. And sometimes you have the ability to come back and steal these games like they did last week. But then other times it's not going to work out, and they're supposed to be better than this, Eric. And they're not.
It's like pulling teeth until the end of the fourth quarter. They fell short against the Jaguars in London, where they had the little spurt and they put themselves in a kind of a spot to maybe steal it, where they had a quick little rebound, and it's like they cut it close. They had a weird hook and ladder. They got lucky last week. They probably could have got a PI call that would have thrown that game the other way. And then this week the offense is asleep at the wheel. It feels like until way late. It shouldn't be. It's tough. It's real tough.
Week 7. Week 7 is early for a team like the Bills, where it's almost like the playoffs only matter. And 3 losses, you don't want to have 3 losses, but it doesn't put them. They're just such a strange team because they were the number 1 team in DVOA heading into last week because they were They've had these weird, like, huge downs and huge ups, and that's surprising. To me, for a veteran team. Now, there was one thing with the Patriots offensive line that I think could help change their season. They put Mike Onwenu, who's been a very good right tackle when they played. They're out at right tackle. He'd been at guard when healthy, and they got Cole Strange back, their first round pick. So they had a couple spots that looked better. The right tackle position was the worst in the entire NFL, so maybe that helps their offense.
When they went on this run of dominance earlier in the year, though, you look back, it's like they dominated the Raiders and the Commanders. And the Dolphins, that's a big win. When I watch this team, because I think Dalton Kincaid had a nice game today, and you thought that would be consistent throughout the year, but like if it's not Stephon Diggs, there's a lack of weapons in this offense, and I think we felt that way like going into the year. That like were they going to go sign DeAndre Hopkins or one of these guys, and they didn't do it. And there's just periods and moments throughout some of these lower echelon performances by the Bills where someone's missing.
All right, couple things here. Here's just because I like this quote. David Andrews, Patriots center. This one gave me feels.
Hey, it feels good. It feels good to go home and, having a beer, sitting outside is going to feel real good. And
I like the idea of just going outside and sitting outside having a beer. Remember?
Well, it's been
nice.
They've not had a lot of beer drinking Sundays.
On like a crisp, like New England, mid to late October. Like he's gonna sit. He's gonna be a little sore, but he's gonna have that beer. I like that. The other quote I want to play for you. You like put on a little maybe one of the first two like Band of Horses albums.
Right, especially a guy who he'd gone to 3 straight Super Bowls at one point. This is dark.
He's going to need more than one beer to.
Beer.
You can smell, you smell that chimney, the chimney smoke in the air, and then you could maybe a breath, but you're bundled up.
Crisp, Massachusetts
I don't know if there's
chimney.
I don't know if the fires have started yet. Quite.
I don't know.
Foxborough.
Well, I mean, it's almost November. I live there. Cold there. It's cold. Here's Bill Belichick, and this was actually really nice to see because Bill Belichick won his 300th game of his career. That's third all time. And he obviously was looking inward and was quite verbose in sharing this special moment for him. So let's listen in.
What's your reaction to becoming the third head coach with 300 wins behind Don Shula and George Halas?
I mean, it's great. I'm really more focused on, our team and this year and worry about that later.
I mean, that was
You actually got me for some reason. I don't know what you were going to throw it to. I was like, oh, because there was a great clip of him. I tweeted it out of him at the Patriots Hall of Fame ceremony this weekend. I've never seen him looser and happier talking about Dante Scarnecchia, who got inducted to the Hall of Fame, like telling jokes and like making impressions. I've actually never heard him literally speak like that. And I was like, wow, Bill. Maybe Bill.
And this was like in concert with that.
Right.
Absolutely. No, he was gushing.
Hey,
very warm.
Shout out to Mike Vrabel. Also got inducted on Sunday. I love the fact that he ended his halftime induction speech to the Patriots Hall of Fame with all right, I'm out of here. We got a game to win. I was like, oh, wow, I hope Gravedigger's not watching this. We got a game to win. I love it. Thank you.
I would mention
Thank
one
you, Mike, for all those touchdowns. I love it.
I thought this was surprising because we've already sort of talked about, it was Flashpoint focus that like maybe this whole Belichick thing ends with New England. It's like Rappaport dropped this bomb this morning that Belichick signed a lucrative multi-year extension in the offseason. So if Kraft was already thinking, and I get all that, that's just money. It's Kraft's a billionaire. So like, if
I guess I'd want to know what that means exactly.
Right. Tom Curran kind of followed
it
up.
It means two things, lucrative and multi-year. Well, like those two things are words that have meaning.
Tom Curran followed up believing that multi-year meant 23 and 24 and that it wouldn't affect the decision making.
Like he was not hired for this season.
That they basically ripped, that it was a way of, they're kind of spinning it, whereas like they ripped up the old contract, that it's probably not passed.
I think Robert Kraft could buy 42 houses and decide he doesn't want them. So I get that. So it's not.
I also feel like I'm
thing,
in the minority on this show that I don't think he's going to lose his job after this year, but he'd be more likely to get another shot, maybe with a new quarterback, and maybe that's that.
Well, who knows? There's literally 10 games
left.
That's the biggest factor is how these 10 games go. If a bunch of them go like this, he'll do fine.
They'll win a few games. They will.
Well, yeah. I mean,
all the Patriots fans out there, like Brockman with the Rich Eisen show. I like Brockman, but they're like pounding the table, like, "Oh, we're gonna get the first overall pick. We're tanking for Caleb and all this stuff." We're not rooting for you to get that.
Yeah. No, why would
you're not like, oh, maybe the Patriots will luck out and get the first overall pick. No.
What fairy tale? Why would that delight us? I don't need that to happen.
You got it, Greg. You got 20 years of greatness.
A lot of bad teams lost today, though. It was a good day for the 1-win teams. They're not too far down in the pecking order still. I think they're at the 5th pick.
All right. Okay, that's one way to get it.
I'm tracking it.
Let's take a break, and then we will continue onward. All right. Okay. So a bunch of close games there. Here's a game that disappointed me. Like my dog he just turned 1 and he's still, he's essentially a teenager at this point. So he'll act out when we leave him. Sometimes he gets upset. So he'll jump up and grab something. And like he ate a box of cookies and we're like, oh, is he going to die? Like, he didn't die, which was good.
What kind of cookies? Like, were they?
They were dark chocolate ginger cookies I got from England for my wife. And she's like, I don't like ginger. I was like, oh, great. So big L there. And then the dog ate them and was like heaving for a couple days.
Double L.
So double L. Good job by me. Anyway, my point being, I'm disappointed both in captain, but still love him. And also the potential shootout between the Chargers and Chiefs. That wasn't.
Kelsey's in the backfield as an H-back. They're going to fake the handoff. Now they're going to go on a pass inside and dragging into the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City! And the Chiefs get the touchdown with a little bit of a formation trickery. They had Travis Kelce lined up in the backfield. He ran a running back route. And Kelce, who lined up in the backfield, just ducked inside and was able to drag 3 Chargers, almost lost the ball as he had the ball up above his helmet, and the Chargers were trying to rip it out.
All right, Bob. WBZ, excuse me, that was Mitch Holtis with WDAF with the call. That was a funny play because Travis Kelce wasn't really open, and Kadarius Toney flared out of the backfield, and he was all by himself for an easy touchdown. And Mahomes is like, "No, Taylor Swift's here. I think he's going to fire this ball into Kelce." Threw it low. Kelce made a great athletic.
That's the thought process.
Like, I really do think it factors in. And he made the catch, and then just lifted the ball above his head. Like, I took the kids to see. There's an old time theater in the town I live. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And, like, he's like Strange, the guy, Glenn Strange, who played Frankenstein. He's just holding it over his head, the ball. And it's like, hey, Chargers, come back to us. Knock the ball out of his hands. And instead, they just let him get pushed into the end zone. It was the 3rd touchdown for Patrick Mahomes in the first half. He finished with 4, and the Chiefs end up cruising to a 31-17 win. The reason I was disappointed is because this game was 17-17. I want to say about early to mid second quarter. There were 4 touchdowns scored in 7 minutes and 5 seconds of game time in the first half at one point. And, listen, in the early games, I went from watching, and oh my God, we're going to talk about it later, but when we're watching Baker Mayfield and Desmond Ridder in the early slate to all of a sudden I have Herbert and Mahomes in the late slate. And this game starts out beautifully. And all I could think to myself is, this is going to be the game everyone's talking about. Not quite, because the Chiefs defense, Greg, which it's been lights out pretty much all year, once they kind of course corrected, completely shut down LA in the end of the second quarter, throughout the second half, shutting them out, in fact, and it's an easy win for the Chiefs as a result.
It's another second half where the Chargers offense gets absolutely nothing. They're just not built to be like this. And you do have to give the credit, though, to the Chiefs defense, because it's now week after week. It's now coming against some good quarterbacks, and it's very often at the linebacker position. Nick Bolton hurt his wrist late in this game, and I think that would be a big loss.
Does not look good either.
Dislocated wrist.
Okay, that's tough, and we'll see like when and how he can play through that if they put a cast on that, but that could be a while. But Willie Gay was everywhere in this game, and when Drew Tranquill's needed to play this year, he's been awesome. I just love the way Spags is deploying these guys, and oh, by the way, like sometimes maybe you will get 424 yards and 4 touchdowns from Mahomes, plus a good defense.
Yeah, you've kind of been waiting for that. And I know, like, fantasy owners have been waiting for that. Like, where's the Mahomes explosion game? Here are some crazy stats. Because to the credit of the Chargers, and I don't want to give them a ton of credit because they kind of drive me crazy watching them. They tightened up defensively in the second half themselves and kept this from turning into a 50-burger situation. But the Chiefs had 333 yards of offense at halftime. Travis Kelce's stat line at the half, 9 for 143 and 1 on 9 targets. Patrick Mahomes' stat line at half, 20 for 23 for 321 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick, another touchdown called back on penalty that led to a field goal. And, I mean, listen, Mahomes is beauty personified as a quarterback, but the Chargers were embarrassing. Their defense in the first half of this game, the number of times Travis Kelce is in the conversation as the greatest tight end who's ever lived. He is all by himself over and over and over. And I understand Mahomes, part of his greatness is he can evade a pocket when it gets muddy, and he makes late decisions, and he does that move where he gets close to the line of scrimmage, and just when you think he's scrambling, he throws it not like a little check down, but like a 20-yard shot down field that goes for a huge play because the defense is broken down. He was doing that, but doing it over and over and over to the point where it's like, aren't you a defensive head coach? Brendan Staley, where are the adjustments? And by the time they came, it was already too late.
I mean, I don't know. I've come to expect frustration from the Chargers at this point, but it is a division opponent. You should know Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid as well as anyone in the league. And you have Justin Herbert. That's the one thing that you have where if the Chiefs keep scoring, they keep producing. And I'm looking at what happens here in the second half in a key divisional matchup. And it's red zone interception, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, close the game with another interception. And it's 2 games in a row where it's like, and Justin Herbert, it's no questioning his talent, but like, you're not getting the job done. And I think there's just something intrinsically and chemically wrong with the Chargers. And it's like, I don't expect
that. I mean, they're the Chargers.
Yeah, but then even to the point where you went in thinking this would be a great game, I mean, they'll take games down to the end, but it's like, this is a team that is 2-4, is not the sum of their parts for the second or third year in a row under this coaching staff. And you can't make things this easy for Patrick Mahomes.
Well, they know what's at stake this season, Brandon Staley and the coaching staff. They know they have to finish, I think, with a winning record to keep their jobs. But this actually was different because, look, every one of these games always comes down to the wire. This is actually the first 2-score win by the Chiefs over the Chargers in 4 years. So that goes back even to before when Staley was here. It's October 22nd. We're wrapping up Week 7. The division's over. The AFC West is won. Unless you think the Raiders are rallying here to go win this division, it's over.
Only a psychotic would think
I'm
that.
just saying.
It is over.
Isn't that crazy? It's just kind of crazy.
Barring a disaster around Patrick Mahomes or something like that, yes.
Shane
walk.
Buechler or whoever's backing him up could do it.
And I mean, I understand your frustration, Mark, because, I'm sick of talking about the Chargers like this also. But it's like you watch a game like this, and they're such a mess in the first half defensively. And then in the second half, when they plug that hole, they're a total mess offensively. And it's like, guys,
and they give up a big special teams play right after Staley, who's been a little more cautious, decides to punt on 4th and 5. The football gods punish him by having the return go to almost exactly the line of scrimmage where the punt was.
And the return was by Mecole Hardman, who also had a big third down conversion before the closing Travis Kelce, before the closing Isaiah Pacheco touchdown.
The one thing, and I know people there's half the people listening to this don't want to hear anything about this individual, but the splits, Travis Kelce's whether Taylor Swift is present or not, are insane. And you know what? I don't know. We're human beings. If the woman that you love is watching you do something, don't you think that maybe it can change who you are? Is that crazy?
I think
people are like, oh, whatever.
No, he might be in a very happy headspace. Because Taylor's at the game again. I was actually thinking this is a little different. Quick Taylor take, and everybody's like, "Oh no, they're talking about Taylor."
I know. Fast forward 15 seconds.
Talk your Bill? It's a story. It's just a thing. Just relax. We have to ruin everything now,
right?
That's what social media mostly does. This.
I haven't heard one thing, but I've also muted most
people
everyone
are always like,
let's
please,
ruin it.
Table the Taylor Swift talk. What is it? 1 minute a show tops ever?
There was a play where Mahomes made a great throw to Kelce in the end zone. He was interfered with, almost came down with it, interfered with, so they were set up 1st and goal. And they showed Patrick Mahomes' wife is Brittany. Mm-hmm. Okay, Brittany Mahomes next to Taylor, and Brittany Mahomes is reacting when she sees the flag go up. She knows what it means. Taylor is like, oh, because the ball wasn't caught. I'm curious, is Taylor starting to learn some of the nuance of the sport?
I bet.
Did she understand what the laundry coming out meant? Are we still working toward that? Did she know football before? I don't want to make an assumption that she didn't know anything about football. In that moment, she seemed a little bit lost in space, whereas Mahomes' wife was totally plugged in. That was one take I had from a replay.
That's a good question.
2 weeks
Is
ago,
she learning?
2 weeks ago, I was talking about Kelsey's catching passes, but where are the explosive plays, yards per play? The last 2 games, 21 for 303 in 2 games.
Absurd.
What is happening?
Absurd.
And also, by the way, this is a completely side note, but Greg and I noticed this before the game. Why is Bernie Kosar hanging out at the Chiefs pregame with Taylor Swift?
I mean, you answer that question.
I don't know.
You've been in contact with Kosar over the years.
No, I will ask him. I'll ask him.
Hashtag wellness.
That was one of the strangest tweets I've ever seen in my life. Real quick, 2 more things. Rashee Rice flashed a little bit in this game. Has flashed a little bit the last couple of weeks.
I like that.
We've talked about the Chiefs need one more guy to kind of become a guy.
He's a guy.
Could it be Rice? And if he is, look out, because this team with this defense and my goodness. And finally, speaking of internet cynicism, controversial Chargers fan lady. Remember, he got all upset about
Marianne,
the woman.
Marianne Doe or Dew, I don't know.
Really? You have her name. That's good.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Journo. She was wearing a Chargers jersey. They cut her at one point. So obviously a big fan. Oh, she was wearing a matching yellow hat of a startup chicken company. So she was helping out a friend. No, it was Buffalo Wild Wings was the hat she was wearing.
That's interesting. I don't
think that's going to help the lingering cynicism around
pure.
her
Yeah.
and the situation.
Yeah.
Greg?
I'm happy she got paid, Let's go. Free chicken.
You've done it again. All right, KC offensive line was great too. They're hey, guess what? They're a good-ass team. And everyone's going to suffer another long season trying to beat them. Oh, speaking of suffering, I was on this Falcons-Bucks beat tonight. Oh, my goodness.
So it's a 51-yard try.
Never lock an NFC South team.
Oh.
Ever.
Pinion will hold, McCullough will snap.
Are you kidding me? What was I thinking?
To win the game for Atlanta. Snap, spot, kick from Koo is away, and it is good. Fly home safely, Atlanta. 16-13 is the final in Tampa. Younghoe Koo the winner from 51 yards. Atlanta goes to 2-0 in the division.
Oh. Me gone. Western with the call. Falcons radio. The Atlanta Falcons lead a division in the NFL. I demand a recount. In a sloppy affair that accelerated the aging process of all those unfortunate enough to watch, in the spirit of transparency, I was paid to do so. The Falcons rode a late 39-yard reception by Kyle Pitts and a Younghoe Koo 51-yarder that you heard as time expired to edge the Bucs 16-13. Tampa Bay has now lost 3 or 4, proving once again that September is a big fat liar. They're not very good. Very frustrating watch. Very hard watch. The Falcons, the reason I'm not even that, upset about the lock is because the Falcons should have won this game 4 different ways. And they couldn't because Desmond Ridder fumbled the ball 3 times and lost all 3 fumbles. And I'll tell you about the fumbles. One was first and goal at the 1, a muffed snap that he couldn't recover. And the second one was on a really nicely designed play call where he scrambled and was heading toward the pylon, maybe let up just enough for a Tampa Bay defender to come in and knock it out of his hand out of bounds.
Antoine Winfield, who is having a hell of a contract year. Man, is he looking good.
It was a beautiful play and a great hustle play. I wouldn't quite call it Don Beebe, Leon Lett, but it was that type of vibe where it looked like it was definitely a touchdown, and then all of a sudden it's going the other way. So the fact that you had 2 absolutely crushing turnovers by Atlanta on offense at the 1-yard line, that never happens. But you still find a way, and part of the reason, Mark, they found a way is because the Bucs offense could not get things going. I owe the Falcons defense an apology. I kind of said they weren't much on the Thursday preview show. Statistically, they've been pretty good this year, and in this game, they continually kind of gave Baker Mayfield fits, and the Bucs are 0 for 2 in the red zone, including late in the game where they had a chance to steal it themselves, but they never came close. the Falcons find a way.
You don't see too many games like this where if you're Atlanta, you got inside the 12-yard line 3 times and produced 0 points on those instances. I wonder if it'd be different because I know Bijan Robinson went out with an illness because he did play for a spot of time at least, but then they lose him. I don't know if that would have made a big difference.
He played 10 total snaps. He said after the game he woke up suffering from like headaches, a ton of headaches, and they tried to go easy on him. Strange.
Everything was strange about it because he was not on the injury report, obviously. So he's saying he woke up with it. Okay. Then he's on the sideline with his helmet on and not getting on the field at all. He actually does eventually get a touch. And his first touch comes with 28 seconds remaining in a 13-13 game. And the Falcons driving for the game-winning field goal attempt. Like, I've never seen any of this stuff happen before. It just this Artie Smith Falcons team is bizarre. But to their credit, they found a way without their best player to get this done. So it's not going to change anyone's feelings, I don't think, about the Falcons' offense because they're still held back by a turnover-plagued quarterback. However, if you look at some of the yardage, yes, they're moving the ball better. And unquestionably, the team has a pulse in terms of moving the football. Kyle Pitts has been involved, Greggy. But you just wonder how much longer they can sustain these back-breaking turnovers if they play teams that are actually good, which the Bucs are not.
But they really don't. And so
right.
I think we should all just take a minute, take a step back, and just accept, like, this is the NFC South.
Right.
We are going to experience this for 10 more weeks.
Right.
This is what Colleen was talking about, by the way.
Yes.
Colleen,
I see where she was coming from.
On some level,
right.
Yes.
And this sometimes happens with Connie, doesn't understand a seg totally. She tried to fork the entire division.
Yeah.
And great comedy ensues. But in the case of this, like, watch this game, and then Colleen's comment makes more sense because we just do we need this? Like, the society need it.
But they're also like the Bucs, Saints, and Falcons. They're all deeply flawed, deeply frustrating, dumb in different ways. The Bucs are just kind of like mediocre. I don't know if they quite fit with the Falcons and the Saints. And they're gonna they're not the worst 5 teams in the league. They're certainly not anywhere near the best. And there's just gonna be like a whole season worth of these types of games, and one of them will get to 9 wins. Maybe, who knows? Maybe even 10 because the schedules are so soft. Probably not, though. I just don't see it. And, you know, if we're lucky, it's not the Sunday night Week 18 game with only like the only playoff potential game.
They can't do that. Well, I could.
It's too early to worry about that. I don't mind like weird, ugly teams, but it's just like let's just accept them.
It's almost like they're a quadrant of like relegated teams that are within the NFL, and it's like as long as you understand that, like they're not really like the real teams, but they do their little thing. They play each other twice a year, and occasionally they play the real teams. It helps to process it.
I mean, you went out of your way to lock one of these teams and pick this game to witness. So I think like the lesson learning on your end will probably be severe after.
Never lock a bad team. Like and that's I've made that mistake before. And I didn't think the Bucs were necessarily bad, but I kind of think they might be pretty bad after watching this because Baker and the offense is really coming down to earth. And oh my God, can we get a running back in that building?
They seem allergic to that.
Not run the ball.
I would say
it's not going to work without a running game when your Baker Mayfield's your quarterback.
I know that Baker
help.
though today he had like that 30-something yard run on 3rd and long, and like I feel like this is just a small little part of his game, but every week there's been an element of Baker like converting and moving the chains with his feet, and I mean that's a small little tiny thing.
That's what I mean. There's just enough with this Bucs team. Like Levante David is playing outstanding. I mentioned Winfield. I think he's been an All-Pro type safety this year. Like, and the Falcons have players too. Like London and Pitts are showing up week after week, making some impressive plays. That's why they'll get to 8 wins and not 4 wins.
That was a gutty scramble by Baker, but they scored 6 points in the last.
No, I know. They're an incomplete.
You got to win a ball game. All right. Falcons fans are going to be mad at me, but it's like, you guys know.
No, they're frustrated.
Like, you guys know. Like I'm not doing this like to antagonize you.
What, that you locked against them?
No, like they know when what I'm saying here is not trying to get them mad. Like it's just they're very fortunate to have the number of wins.
I think they have the highest ceiling of this division. I don't know if that's going to matter or mean anything though. I do think they have the highest ceiling.
All right. let us move on then. Up next, we head to the Meadowlands, the swamps of Jersey. Another tough one. Whoo-wee.
Again, they have McLaurin ISO'd one-on-one with Banks out to the left.
Inside technique, Banks is clearing.
Howell back, under pressure, avoids the sack, spins away, throws left, and the pass is incomplete. Intended for Dotson. Isaiah Simmons got pressure on the quarterback, forcing a bad throw, and the Giants stop Washington on 4th and 5 with 56 seconds left.
The call is by the great Bob Papa, Giants Radio. And boys, I think there's one thing to take away from this game. You never fork the New York Football Giants.
That's your takeaway?
We can move on to the next game. Tyrod Taylor threw 2 second quarter touchdown passes, and Dexter Lawrence led a Big Blue defense that had 6 sacks. They had 5 all year entering this game. Had 6 sacks, including 5 in the first half. And they made that last-minute stand you just heard with a little help from Jahan Dotson. Squeeze it, kid. They snap a 4-game losing streak with a 14-7 win over the Commanders at MetLife Stadium. This game, another one that they will not be sending to Canton. Giants looked really good in the first half. And the defense was humming. Like I said, 5 sacks in the first half. Taylor throwing it all over the field with ease. Saquon looking good, even though he suffered a little bit of an elbow injury in this game. Darren Waller again in the mix. Clearly has better chemistry with Taylor than he's had with Daniel Jones. That all dried up in the second half, but the defense did enough to get this win and keep their faint hopes alive.
I mean, Sam Howell came in having been sacked 34 times. I think it was like 13 of those were on Sam Howell and the way that he plays. So, I mean, it's one of those rare instances. I feel like we spend our preview show looking at what's happened and saying this is probably something that could happen. And then when it actually does in today's NFL, I'm kind of like, wow, it actually went as you'd think. Sam Howell went and got sacked 6 times.
But it's surprising when it's against the Giants, who had, as Dan mentioned, 5 going into the year, but they didn't handle the blitz. And look, he's on pace for 97. I think.
He's on
pace
the
to
same?
shatter David Carr's record.
No, I wouldn't put this under what he's gotten in trouble with a lot this season with holding the ball too long. I think the offensive line had a lot of breakdowns, and the pressure was instant in many of the cases, which is surprising again because the Giants have done almost nothing in that realm until this game. But this is also a Commanders team, and I was getting tweets throughout the game from Commanders fans that are just like they're so sick of this team. I think it's a Ron Rivera situation. They've now lost to the previously winless Bears. They've now lost to the 1-5 Giants, and this is just in the last 3 weeks. And it makes sense when you hear Jonathan Allen, one of the very talented players on a very talented defensive line, speaking to reporters after the game. Here's what he said, courtesy of NBC4 Sports in D.C.
Does it get frustrating when that?
Yes, it does. I'm tired of this. Tired of this bullshit. It's been 7 years of the same. Tired of this.
What can you do now going forward to get it turned around?
Get our minds right and get ready to play Philadelphia.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Randy or Eric, who was in charge of the beeps there?
That was me.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Very nice.
I mean,
Great job.
I
could guess what he was saying.
Excellent beeps. That was the most.
Got to give them just enough so they know what's being said.
And that's a lot of frustration because I think they know or think that they are a better team than the Giants. So to be kind of punched in the mouth the way they were, and they only get back in that game because Sterling Shepard muffs a punt in the second half that leads to a short field and the only Commanders touchdown. And then late in the game, the Giants had it locked up. Saquon, who's I think had his 1 fumble his entire career in the pros, he coughs it up in the red zone, setting up that last drive by Washington that falls short again on a Dotson drop. It wasn't a perfect throw by Howell, but he did a great job getting away from pressure, puts it near enough to make the catch. The catch isn't made, and it's just like it's an inconsistent team for playing for a head coach who's maybe been around for too long, and everyone's just like, there's a lot of excitement around the Commanders from a big picture perspective because Snyder's gone, but a lot of it is way too familiar for fans that are sick of it.
Yeah, it doesn't fix it all in 1 week.
You're not going to become a team that sneaks into the playoffs, which I think is the ceiling for this team, unless you take advantage of those situations. On the 3rd down play, Sam Howell has Terry McLaurin one-on-one. It's 3rd and 5 from the 7. Adoree Jackson is out of this game. He's up against a rookie in that scenario. Howell is facing no pressure whatsoever, and he doesn't put it anywhere near Terry McLaurin, who, by the way, they didn't target for the first half, and then in the second half they target 9 times and he gets 90 yards because he's Terry freaking McLaurin. It's just been a bizarre thing. So Howell doesn't even put it anywhere near, just a totally bad ball, and he's a very strange quarterback because he makes so many good plays and so many bad plays. And then the next play, he scrambles after getting pressured, makes a nice throw to Dotson. It wouldn't have been the game-tying touchdown because it probably would have been. It probably would have been
a first down.
It would have been a first down, down at the 1 or 2 with plenty of time left. And it's just this team is frustrating.
Yeah, and Giants fans, like I said, I mentioned the Shepard turnover. I mentioned the Barkley turnover.
That was terrible.
There was also an all-time, and I understand he's edge rusher, so these guys, even the defensive backs can't catch. But Howell made a horrendous decision under pressure in his own end zone and threw up a balloon right to Kayvon, basically handed to him on a platter and had a real chance at a pick 6. He drops the football, and it was so bad that there was a tweet that I liked about this, and I took no joy in this, but this is just me reporting on the game, boys. Here is a tweet from. Oh, I wish I had who it was from, but here's what it said. Giants players lying all over the field in disbelief. Thibodeau distraught. It's like how they reported on the Titanic sinking. All right.
So I do like seeing Jalen Hyatt show up. I mean, it seems like things almost function better without Daniel Jones.
Oh yeah, you tweeted it out that there's going to be a weird conversation in New York this week.
I think we're getting there. If things would have kept up for the last 2 quarters, there absolutely would have been a huge conversation. Now it's still kind of more like some whispers, I think.
Well, I think
it's going to get louder. If they beat the Jets next week, it gets louder.
I think the whispers can be okay, maybe let's not go crazy and say they're way better with Tyrod, but it's there's certainly no major difference, which concerns.
They're very close to winning both these games.
Yep.
All right, let's move on. It's time now for the Sunday Drive presented by the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander. Tough timing because you don't even have to drive to this particular game we're about to talk about. It's right across the sidewalk.
Well, we don't have to drive, but
you got to drive to work.
Someone else
got to drive to work. Got to get here.
Walking home from here.
Talking about us. We're here. We here now.
That's true. If you want to make it specifically about us, you're right.
But if we weren't here now,
right,
we would be taking the Highlander. Everybody get in the Highlander. Okay.
First and goal at the 3. The Steelers in a tie game.
Climb in the Highlander.
With everything in tight. Pickett.
We're heading to Pittsburgh West.
The lone setback is Najee Harris. Pickett steps in. Hands it off. Najee into the end zone. Pittsburgh Steelers go-ahead touchdown.
The Iron Horse, Najee, goes into the end zone. Angry man running all day, showing that strength, that power. And when you had to do it, who do you give it to? You give it to Najee Harris, who does a great job of plunging over the left side.
His first.
He's talking about he's Jim Brown or something. Bill Hillgrove and Craig Wolfe, the call, WDVE. SoFi Stadium was lousy with Steelers fans, including Shaq, our buddy. Steelers haven't played here a lot. And everybody had fun watching them take care of the Rams 24-17 behind 14 unanswered points in the fourth quarter. The defense, Greggy, in this game really shut down Los Angeles down the stretch.
I want to start giving some credit for Pittsburgh before we get to the calls by the officials.
Okay.
Even though the calls by the officials were the story, let's mention at least that the Steelers came into the fourth quarter doing absolutely nothing on offense, had barely over 100 yards, 6 first downs in the game. In the fourth quarter, they came alive for the first time all season. They held the ball for over 11 or 12 minutes. They had 11 first downs in the fourth quarter. They get a couple of touchdown drives going, extended drives going, that kept the ball away from the Rams at the end of the game. And Kenny Pickett looked at least like rookie Kenny Pickett for the first time all season. Deontay Johnson absolutely changes this offense. To me, he's more valuable to them, to Kenny Pickett, maybe even than George Pickens, because he's more reliable on a down-to-down basis. So yes, they got a ton of breaks, and we'll get to that. But their offense did take over in the fourth quarter and also stop the Rams from moving the ball. So some credit. Give it to the Steelers for playing their best when it mattered most in a game they were basically dominated for 3 quarters.
Yes, Mark.
I want to believe in the Steelers team. I said they'd win 12 games, and they finally.
You know what? They're on pace.
They are on pace.
Just about.
I'll help you guys out. They're not going to win 12 games.
Well, what I was asking for, though, before.
Now I'm starting to wonder.
See what you're saying about Pickens, but I was hoping that, Jalen Warren and Pickens would become sort of the centerpiece of this attack. And I saw they had, 91 yards in the first half.
Yeah, but Pickens ends up 5 for 107, makes some big plays. They had a good connection on those 3 drives that I'm talking about. They had the touchdown drive on a shorter field, and then a 90-yard touchdown drive, and then they closed the game out. Pickens did it. Warren, I would like to see more of Jalen Warren. Yes.
Do you believe in Kenny Pickett at this point? Does anything change?
No, but this was it wasn't a fiasco, so that's a start. This was a solid game from him. What do you?
I mean, if that's the bar right now, we're going to talk about the team winning 12.
I'm just saying they got to
be a lot better than that.
They are somehow 4-2, and I just know teams change, and because they're the Steelers, I give them a chance to be a team that actually becomes good at some point. And oh, by the way, you got to 4-2 without being good. Now you did it with some luck because of the calls that I mentioned.
Let's talk about that.
So
that was horrible.
First of all, they get a pass interference on Ahkello Witherspoon, the Rams cornerback, on a 3rd and 8 in a spot in the field where the Steelers probably would have punted at that point, and the Rams would have gotten the ball back with over 2.5 minutes to go, down 7. Doesn't mean they're going to win. The Rams offense had shot themselves in the foot the last few drives before that, and so who knows? But the Rams were going to get the ball back. It was a phantom call. There really wasn't contact. It was just awkward. The official was in a bad spot. It ended up being a no blood play because they called it taunting, but the Steelers got another chance at it, and they picked up the first down.
Which was also a bad call, by the way. The taunting was, too.
The taunting was a bad call, too, but it felt like a ball don't lie
play. Because the DB was chirping, and then he held up his finger hey,
he went
pipe down, it's a penalty.
He, turned the guy, he, ran around him, so he was in his face, and then whispered it. I don't like the taunting call.
Whispered.
They're gonna call. I'm saying they did the shush in his face for a few seconds.
I was happy with the result, not the process.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do love Deontay Johnson. I think he changes it, and that was a big time moment in the game. But then the spot, and I'm sure if you watched Red Zone today, you saw it. They go for it on a 4th down play for Kenny Pickett. Basically, the game's on the line. If you pick it up, the Steelers win the game. If not, the Rams have great field position to go down the field. And Kenny Pickett clearly was short. Replays clearly showed it was short. And Sean McVay couldn't challenge it because he was out of timeouts. And the play actually went into the 2-minute warning, but it started before the 2-minute warning, so it's not an automatic review. Game over. What are we doing here?
This is going to be a little controversial, but we know there's a little bit of a chicanery that goes on about sometimes all of a sudden a play is ruled a catch, and there's actually, upon further review, it's completion. There is some help going on in the game. Yeah, just get in the ear and say, we can't end the game that way. It's pretty clear that this is, at best, close but not there. To let the game end that way, and I know you had 50,000 Steelers fans that were thrilled with the ending of that game, but the Rams fans that were hoping for one more chance, that is such a gut-wrenching way for the game to end. And it kind of, in a lot of ways, Greg, kind of ruined that game because it took away what should have been the climax and just said, okay, we're moving on.
It was a mistake, and I think it was either Patrick Claybon or someone else quote tweeting him that was what we have to look at what is the purpose of these replay things, because yes, Sean McVay didn't have a timeout left, but the point is to get the call right, and I feel like there has to be a mechanism to get the call right on a call like that. The pass interference, I get it. That happens probably once a week, where there's a big pass interference call that you could argue with in a big spot. It happens. It sucks. But a play like that, which is the down, where you can tell that he's down and something's clearly there needs to be a mechanism to get rid of that. Now, that said, I do want to point out Sean McVay didn't have those 3 timeouts in part because they blew a timeout because they ran out of time early in the 3rd quarter, and that is a Sean McVay specialty that absolutely drives me crazy, and it comes back to haunt them pretty often, and he still does it. It drives me crazy.
2 quick points. Puka Nacua made another big day, 8 for 154. He had 1 catch near the sideline that Like, actually, it was challenged by Mike Tomlin just because he didn't want to believe that it was possible that he could get 2 feet down on the play, and he did. And it's like he's almost demanding to be in the conversation for the Superstar Club, which is one of the biggest surprises of this season. He is the second player via ESPN in NFL history with 700 or more receiving yards in his first 7 career games. And the fact that he's still doing it with Cooper Kupp there tells you a lot. The other thing is, and I don't say this in a way to be like mean, but if you sign Brett Maher to be your kicker, you asked for it. And they lost a game today that was a close game, and he missed 2 field goals. They were both long kicks, but people are drilling 50-yarders on the reg now. And most crucially, an extra point, which led to him having the yips at the end of last season. And like I remember thinking when they broke camp with him, like, they're going to get through 18 weeks without this guy melting down and costing you a game or games before you have to pivot in the middle of the season, which no team likes to do. It was a kind of needless risk. I hope Maher has a long and successful career, but you don't see things like you saw at the end of last season very often in our league.
And come back from that.
And to see this happen again, I wonder how long he is for the Rams.
I feel like we used to have this with quarterbacks, and I mean, we still do to some degree, but there's like 25 functional kickers that don't leave you completely suspect and wondering what is going to happen to your team on any given Sunday. And Maher's in that subdivision of like, no, I don't trust you, and you're going to prove to me why I don't trust you.
Right. He missed that extra point, and they actually got the point back with a 2 later. But the 2 kicks he made after that, what is it that Jay Feely says? That he piped it?
Piped it, yeah.
It was the opposite of piping.
Reverse pipe.
It was a reverse pipe hook. It was like you're on the first tee and the water's on the left, and you're like, just don't hit it in the water. Just don't hit it in the water. And both of them were just these hooks where you're just like, I don't need to be a kicking expert to know he kicked those with no confidence whatsoever. And so that is a big time concern because going into the fourth quarter, they had 300 plus yards and the Steelers had 100, and they should have been winning this game by 2.5 touchdowns. But the play of the game, and I know we've talked about this game, but
sure,
it was one of the plays of the season to me. TJ Watt's interception. So many things happened after it that you can say won them the game, but they were losing that game unless TJ Watt in zone coverage somehow reads the route combination. TJ Watt, like, he's dropping back and he's supposed to be covering the outside receiver. He reads exactly what's going to happen. He breaks on the ball like he's prime Patrick Peterson, not the Peterson they got now, and he gets an interception and brings it back to the 10-yard line. That is one of the most astounding plays I've ever seen a defensive lineman make. And that's the only reason they were even in this game is setting up that short touchdown.
How many? It's not that they made this exact play in the past. How many times? This is what I mean. But Myles Garrett,
I get it, but that was beautiful.
Today, but TJ Watt. No, to TJ Watt's credit, it's like there have been like 10 or 11 instances of TJ Watt completely sealing and changing games like this with things that other people in his position don't do.
I'm watching the MLB playoffs, and Bryce Harper of the Phillies has this knack for the big moment. And I noticed he's wearing a headband that says the showman on it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a perfect nickname for that guy. Watt's like a showman.
Absolutely.
And also, are you arguing, Greg, perhaps not on purpose, that was a bit of a big momentum swing for the Steelers, that interception?
No.
Too robotic.
What do you mean momentum swing?
They swung the momentum back
they were
to
just
the Steelers.
They were just like losing the game, and
then what happened?
He made it so that they
won
a path to winning the game.
How else could you describe
that?
How else could you describe what happened right there?
Speaking of showman, sometimes this guy, Nick Wesseling, tries to get on me for not being a showman, even though, I took the Eagles this week. He tried to be cool and take the Rams. How'd that work out for you? There we go.
Unfair.
And I already see while we're taping, and I'm trying not to focus on it, but there's been like 7 texts between the Cincinnati Zoo of
Is he
one
spinning out?
Phil is getting after Nick.
Oh,
who's
not
saying
again.
it's just who knows.
Not again. All right, let's take a break, and then we'll finish out the late slate. All right, we are back. And light slate this week with 6 teams on bye, so we just need a pinch hit appearance from Shook to handle a game from Mile High. So let's talk a little Packers, Broncos, and then welcome in the pipe.
Obviously 2-down territory, even from the Packers 46. A crowd on their feet making noise. 4-man rush. Love in the pocket. Bounces around. Throws a ball deep down the field. That ball is intercepted! Intercepted by P.J. Watt.
And this one is going to end with the Broncos winning the home game.
Jordan Love, down 2 points, had a chance to be the hero. But instead he threw a balloon ball down the right sideline that was easily intercepted. The death blow for the Packers in a Broncos 19-17 win. The Broncos are now 2-5. They've kind of woken up a little bit the last few weeks, and the Packers now 2-4 and not looking very good. Yes, as I said, we now welcome in the pipe Nick Shook. And by the way, I just realized Jay Feely is saying you piped it, which means like a perfect type of thing.
Right.
In that case, a kick. And now we have a perfect type of thing, a guest that handles game coverage, Nick Shook. Jordan Love is tough to watch, bud, right now. What is up with that?
I'm also wondering what reverse pipe would mean in that, with all that connotation. I don't know, but we won't go there. They said in the call, it's obviously 2-down territory, right? Not in Jordan Love's world, not where he wants to go be the hero and chuck one deep into what's essentially ends up being double coverage. I'm so frustrated watching him play because I've seen the potential. And you saw it in this game too. He was bad Jordan Love for the first 2.5, 3 quarters. And then all of a sudden they wake up, they string together a couple of touchdown drives, and you're like,
familiar.
Look, he's figuring it out again. And then it ends in the same way. Like it's these Packers fans have to be just so frustrated. Now, granted, they're spoiled. Packers fans have been spoiled for the last 2 decades by elite quarterback play. Welcome to Gen Pop, folks. This is what being an NFL fan and not being a fan of the Packers is. Unfortunately for them, another loss, another frustrating one. But hey, good on the Broncos, man. They got another W.
It's funny that Shook is much like Mark, a Browns fan who hated that the Packers had 3 decades of great
I think
quarterback play.
Shook and I have dealt with some similar ups and downs, as have the Jets fans and all the rest.
I think with Love, he's got some good things, but at least the way he sees the game, like the way he sees defenses, when he's not seeing it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he will, but he's not seeing it. He is very often seems to be confused by what the defenses are showing him, even when it's the Broncos defense, Shook.
Yeah, the Broncos defense that was ranking near dead last entering the last 2 weeks, and suddenly maybe they're not that bad. I don't know. I was watching this game, and I actually had a couple games on my slate today that were pretty similar in that it was just 2 teams that you really don't know if they're any good. The other one being Buccaneers Falcons, where I'm just like, yeah, these teams are basically the same, and neither of them are going to separate themselves from the rest of the pack, except these 2 teams in Denver were worse than those 2 teams. It was just like the stats are very similar. They both ended up with 194 net passing yards.
It's the poor man's Falcons Bucks game for the week.
Yeah. It was. It's just it's rough to watch them right now, and when it's just tough. On the Denver side, you got to feel a little bit better about some of the stuff they did. Russell Wilson, not great, but he's still kind of making plays. He hangs onto the football too long. They did get a good contribution from the rushing attack, and their defense played better. But was it really like a litmus test of this defense is starting to come around, or were they just playing the Packers, who sleptwalked through 3 quarters of this game? I don't know.
I think it was an important game, Shook, and tell me if you agree, for Russell Wilson coming off 2 really poor games. If he had another clunker here, you might have started hearing some conversations about who's the quarterback of this team as we get closer to November. But did he do enough in your mind to just, they won the game, and you're not going to hear anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, statistically, he was fine. 20-29, 194, and a touchdown pass. It was a nice touchdown pass to Cortland Sutton. It's just a good read on a good route concept that beat the defense. But again, it's kind of some of what we've been seeing from him, which is you see the potential. Like there was that game against Washington like a month ago where they lit it up in the first half, and you're like, there he is. That's who he is. But it's just not consistent. Whether they're playing a good defense and they're struggling, and they're playing an average team and struggling, there just hasn't been a lot of separation there. So I feel better about him under Sean Payton than I did a year ago, because they were completely lost a year ago. But and he moves better. He's faster to process and make decisions, but he's still Russell. He still tries to extend the play way too long, gets himself into some bad situations, and they end up in a game like this where it's a 1-score game because neither team can get out of its own way, and that includes Russell Wilson.
Do you think Matt LaFleur, it's hard to get a real read on a coach when he rolls into a head coaching situation with a Hall of Fame quarterback for a number of years and they roll through the regular season? I think this is a season where it's like we're going to find out who he is and what he can do and what he can do creatively to get out of a troubling situation at quarterback, really an up and down. Like, do you think what's your take on him at this point? Do you think he's a difference-making kind of coach or just a guy?
Well, you know how they take pictures of presidents when they first show up in the Oval Office, and then they fast forward either 4 or 8 years at the end of their term? and they've aged significantly. I expect that type of aging process.
The bearded boy, no more.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's a good-looking guy, and I think he's going to get a couple wrinkles this year off this season because it's just so frustrating. But it's a product of being, a coach of the youngest team in the NFL. You got a bunch of young guys who just don't have experience. You got a receiver who goes and bails out his quarterback on a touchdown pass that should have been an interception if Romeo Doubs hadn't tied up Patrick Surtain on a pass that may or may have not been an interception that was ruled incorrectly.
Steratore on CBS said it should have been a pick.
Yeah. And so LaFleur's going to have to overcome a lot of this stuff. He got frustrated with Luke Musgrave last week and chewed him out in the sidelines that everybody could see on TV. It's just going to be a growing pains process that's going to age him a little bit, and they're probably not going to contend for much of anything. But the hope is by the end of the year that your quarterback makes enough progress. So to answer your question, Mark, I think he is the coach. I think he's done enough at this point to prove that he is, but it's just he's working with a ton of young guys.
We all get sucked in a little bit, and remember all those camp reports that were glowing like this was going to be a seamless handoff. It's going to be a process. The Packers have been outscored 63-6 in the first half of their last 4 games, and here is as we piss off the pipe. Nope. The Denver Broncos had lost 10 consecutive games when leading at halftime until today. That is one of the more insane.
That's hard to do.
I see you, totally Broncos fans. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. But that streak goes by the boards. Nick, I apologize for that comment, and we'll see you next week.
I'm gonna go figure out what reverse pipe means. We'll see you guys later.
All right, later, buddy. All right, let's keep moving. Let's head to Seattle, where the Cardinals were looking to stage an upset themselves.
Pistol formation, play fake to him this time. Gino's going to throw right down the seam. Touchdown, Seahawks! JSN with the touchdown. His first career score in the National Football League. Tyler Lockett picks up the ball. He's going to save it for the rookie out of Ohio State. 28 yards and a dart thrown by Geno Smith. The Seahawks on the board first. They lead 6-0.
Very nice, Steve Rabel with the call. Seahawks radio, Kenneth Walker III ran for a $105. And yes, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jake Bobo. Nice year for Bobo. Both caught first half touchdown passes. Seahawks take care of business 20-10 over the 1-win Cardinals. Sounds like a classic Markey take care of business effort for Seattle. Maybe one of those old Milton Berle games. Taking out just enough needed win.
Very Milton Berlish. Yes.
You've now had an Abbott and Costello and Milton Berle reference. Who are you, Al Michaels? Hey,
go all the way back, baby. Poor Al.
You're right, though. It really was take care of business, and I get at this point, I'm kind of like, all right, Cardinals, I get it. You're gonna do this every week. You're gonna hang around.
They've lost.
Oh no, don't now.
They haven't lost me, but it's like
dog.
no. But this whole thing about so you are in this game in Seattle. I mean, this was not Seattle's shining moment because there were a series of drives in the third and fourth quarter where Seattle was sort of inviting the Cardinals to come on, make this thing close. It's 17-10, and Geno Smith gets intercepted at Arizona's 1-yard line. The next drive, they're at third and 2 at the Arizona 2. They get nailed with a holding call, get stuck at a field goal, got to punch it in there. Then next drive, Geno Smith fumbles the ball in Seattle's territory, and they're lucky that Arizona misses the field goal there. So it's like Cardinals had a chance to get back into this, but their final 6 drives, the Cardinals, were downs, punt, that missed field goal I mentioned, downs. I don't know how many times you can go out on 4th down here, but it's like they're not able to complete it. I think it's important that for the Cardinals, we didn't mention this on Thursday, that Kyler Murray's back in that 21-day window, and it sounds like from the reporting from Rappaport and others that they are intent on playing him and playing him a lot and as soon as possible. So this conspiracy theory that I clung to some degree that maybe we never saw Kyler Murray this season will not be true. And they do play hard and they do hang around. But Seattle, I think one thing that I came away with this game, they have some young players that are really interesting. You mentioned Jake Bobo. The guy can play. Like, he made an incredible catch today, maybe the catch of the day league-wide. And it's like, this guy can do it. Like Devin Witherspoon, every game seems to blow someone's world up. He had a hit today that was maybe one of the most massively devastating elements of contact that I've seen all season. And I just kind of dig these. And I think on Thursday, I wanted to see Jackson Smith and Jigba show up, and he did today. You didn't have DK Metcalf, and these guys are making plays. So that's my hope for Seattle. They don't wow me as a team that's going to knock people off in the playoffs. They're sort of just a team to me, but a better than average team.
They didn't have DK Metcalf today. I mean, all these teams changed so much. The Seahawks have changed quite a bit for me already through 7 weeks. I'm so much higher on their defense than I was a month ago. And I was wondering what they were going to do with Spoon because they had that crazy game on Monday Night Football where he was really only in the slot because Jamal Adams got hurt. And it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to leave him there. We're not going to mess with him. We're going to play the safeties around him. We're going to let him be as close to the ball as possible. And they really have something there. And Wagner and Brooks are playing well together. And if they haven't had an above-average defense literally for, I think, 8 years, I think it was 2015. If they have a fun defense, then you can win games like this where, look, they handled the Cardinals offense better than most defenses had this year. And then they got something where they could be pretty dangerous with enough weapons on offense, too.
Geno's been picked inside the 20 back-to-back weeks. That didn't happen at all with Seattle before the last 2 weeks. So he's got to protect the ball there, as we know. And I'll throw out one more nugget that the Cardinals, Mark, did not cross 100 yards passing until the fourth quarter. So Josh Dobbs, maybe that plays into a little bit of the team itching to get another look at their high-paid supposed superstar quarterback on the mend from ACL.
I will say Dobbs, like in the last, this season, but also what he did with the Titans at the end of last year, like that's a nice way to carve out a 5 or 6 year career going forward. Like this is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league.
The target, it sounds like for Murray, would not be next week, week 8, but potentially as soon as week 9.
Yeah, and there's a deadline in play where you have to have him on the field or he's done for the year. So it looks like it's trending that way. Before we get to Sunday Night Football, let's close it out with a little Raiders-Bears at Soldier Field.
Left to right, 5:46 to go in the ball game.
Still got time to get one.
Brian Hoyer, first down at 10 of the 25, 4-man rush. It's coming home, but Groyer throws left, and it's intercepted. Jalen Johnson, goodbye, baby. 20, 15, 10, pick 6, touchdown Bears. An exclamation point by a job well done by the Bears defense. His second career interception and his first touchdown. Hoyer's been staring left all day. Johnson broke on it and took it to the house.
The Raiders went into the season saying, Brian Hoyer is our backup.
Josh McDaniels said that, but yeah.
Again, you get what you ask for. Jalen Johnson with the pick 6. Tyson Bagent, nice job. 3 touchdown drives in the first half. In his first start with Justin Fields out with that hand issue. And the Chicago Bears cruise to a 30-12 win over the Raiders. The Raiders are 3-4, but it feels like they're 1-6, but they're 3-4. And the Bears now improved to 2-5. Greg, certain corners of Twitter/X, chirping about the idea of is Bagent actually better for this offense than Justin Fields? Are you going to buy into that? Do you see anything in this kid?
I thought he played really well today. It wasn't about him. He didn't have to do that much, but he played like a guy who is going to be in the NFL for 9 or 10 years.
The Dobbs thing.
You mentioned Dobbs. Yeah. I mean, who knows what his ceiling's going to be? This is a rookie playing his first start, undrafted rookie. But what he did was get to his second read more than once, not do anything stupid really the whole day, and run and look comfortable. He was 21 for 29, 162. It was nothing crazy, but I felt like, man, they might have something here when almost immediately when he scrambled on a third down where he goes through his reads, he gets the first down, and then he's asking a moribund Soldier Field crowd to give him some freaking love here.
I like that.
I liked it.
That
it was
juice.
just like,
yeah, good juice.
He played like a confident young player who was not at all, cowed by the moment. He only took 3 quarterback hits, and yes, that's partly because of the Raiders, partly because of the good game plan by Getsy getting the ball out of his hand, but it's partly because he wasn't holding on to the ball. So it looked like a functional offense today for one of the first times all year. I mean, they've been up and down. Even with Fields, they were putting up some yardage numbers, but it was a very good performance by him.
The Bears,
was happy for him.
The Bears defense has been such a disaster under Matt Eberflus this season. So I get you're playing the Raiders, who are, you're dealing with a backup quarterback, and their offensive line's got issues. Their running game is dead on arrival. So is it that, or is Chicago's defense sort of turning the corner maybe a little bit?
They've been a little better. Certainly the last couple look, they have 2 wins by, what was this by? By 20-plus points.
I'm just saying the last couple of weeks, it's been a little bit different.
Remember, I trotted out that stat about the Texans a couple weeks ago, that they have more 17-plus point wins than the Vikings have had for the last 4 years combined. Well, now the Bears have 2 in the last 2 weeks. So, yes, the Bears' defense played better, but they were helped out by Hoyer starting this game. Josh McDaniels is living in his fears. Starting him over O'Connell was insane.
Oh, why?
Oh, Hoyer was staring down receivers. He was begging for a pick six all day. He ends up with 129 yards and 2 interceptions on 32 attempts, and he was making the types of mistakes. If O'Connell was making it the whole time, you're like, oh, that's a rookie. That's a rookie, just like locking into certain guys. Almost every pass he threw was touched by a Bears defender. It was just like, is the Raiders, is Devontae Adams going to make a contested catch, or are they going to intercept the ball, or are they going to knock
Hoyer's lost 13 straight starts, and what are you even telling your locker room?
He shouldn't be playing.
Put O'Connell in there. Like, let the young player play.
There's a great line in the final season of Succession. Actually, I think it's the last scene with Logan Roy, the patriarch, and the children at a karaoke bar, I think in Chinatown. And he goes after they unload on the father, because they want to have control of the company, and then he kind of just buries him. He goes, "I love you, but you're not serious people." And that's what I feel like the Raiders, and specifically McDaniels, when he's making decisions like this. Like, you're not a serious head coach. I can't get even invested in them right now.
Do you want to know the moment? Well, they're going to be on Monday Night Football next week. I think it's their last primetime game, but my God, it's Lions. It's Lions Raiders Monday night. Watch us on Channel 5 in the UK. Daniel Carlson kicked a 25-yard field goal on 4th and, I think it was at like the 6 or 7, after a 7-minute, 15-play drive to cut the score to 21-6. You're like, oh, okay. Well, that must have been in the second quarter, maybe early third.
No.
No, that was in the mid. That was in the fourth quarter.
Logan,
that was in the fourth quarter. It was 21-3, and he asked for a field goal. And there were actually some Raiders fans that and I was like, you can't be serious, Josh McDaniels. They're like, well, it cuts it to 2 scores. What about this game was going to tell you that they were going to get down there to possibly score a touchdown, or that they would stop the Bears' running game? The Bears, of course, promptly went on a 7-minute drive and put points up by themselves. It's just, you're right. They're not as serious.
I heard Greg going off about this during the day in the news.
Because I have an attachment to Josh McDaniels. He was part of a lot of great moments.
And you know what?
Yep.
He might have success yet in this league as an offensive coordinator, but this ain't a thing. Before we move on, I want to say, can we put, our producer, by far, we've had a lot of producers. It's turning into like a drummer from Spinal Tap situation. The pop culture references are all over, spanning the decades, Greggy. 40s, 50s, 80s, 2000s. Let's take a look at Tyson Bagent when he got the game ball. I mean, Eric Roberts, what I was going to say, Eric Roberts is the most inked producer we ever had.
Yes, by far.
This is going to...
Sydney was close.
Not since A.J. McCarron have we seen ink like this. Would you look at that? I mean, that is a lot of work. And Eric, you're a man who's turned your body into a canvas. To get that amount of work done on the breastplate and surrounding territories, that's got to be, you got to have respect for that, right?
Right, yeah. We talked about it a little bit before. It's a lot of work. A full chest piece across the shoulder down to, looks like at least the mid-forearm. And it's a lot of scripture, a lot of it looks religious. But yeah, the breastplate is what I've heard is probably the most painful. My brother has a pretty big American Eagle across his chest.
I love it.
And he has a bunch. My whole family has a bunch. And he said that's the only one where he's thought about tapping out.
Dude, he's got a prop engine plane on his. His left.
His dad is like the 17-time arm wrestling champion of the universe.
Yeah,
they're built different in the Bagent family.
Love it. He's broing out pretty hard in this video where the game ball, backwards hat, trucker hat, and tatted up. I respect him though. Yeah,
it was pretty cool. I don't let him win another game, or else like the discourse in Chicago will just be a little too much. But I think we can have a nice story without making it a like him or him type of thing.
Do you have any tattoos, Dan?
No.
Would you be compelled to get one? I know Greg does.
No, I mean, you guys, the two of you are turning into, like I'm in a biker bar when I step in here. Every time I look at you guys, you have new ink. But no, I've never had the urge, quite honestly.
No, I think
I'm not
it's your body,
not judgmental.
No, it's
like
your
it's
choice.
fine.
Right.
I hope you have that opinion.
I'm not.
No judging your way.
I'm not saying that you should have them. I just didn't know. I've not seen your entire.
It would. I mean, you knew. Wouldn't it be shocking if Dan was like, "Yeah, I've got a Taylor Swift on my lower back"?
That would be, but I mean, it could be something else. You never know.
No, nothing yet. But open-minded if something really strikes me.
Yep. Good.
All right.
Shout out to that listener who had the Heed the Call tattoo in a similar spot as me.
Oh, you're right. Yeah,
Matching.
I saw that photo
in London. That was cool.
Even the font, I think, was similar.
Font was similar. I have like the typewriter font. He didn't go all caps like me, but it's pretty similar.
Little annoyed, actually. Sneaky annoyed. Like, hey, that's my IP.
No, we've seen for many listeners that have Heed the Call tattoos, and it's one of the things that gives me like the most amount of joy in thinking about Chris, seeing those out there. It's pretty cool.
Greg was not going to let you turn that into something there, Dan. So,
just a
nice try, though.
You're weird.
To Sunday Night Football.
2nd down and 3. Hurts takes the gun, goes to Gainwell. Gainwell spins. He's in. Touchdown.
Not to be denied. Kenny Gainwell takes this thing off the left tackle, and he gets hit on about the 2-yard line, but he smells pay dirt. He spins, he keeps his balance, and he's into the end zone.
Mike, that's what they call a cartwheel. He cartwheeled into the end zone.
Is that a cartwheel?
That was a cartwheel.
Well, yeah. I was just about to say that Merrill Reese and Mike Quick were a great Batman and Robin there. And then Merrill comes in with the cartwheel. It wasn't a cartwheel.
It's like a spinorama.
A spinorama. Okay, now I could run with spinorama. Anyway, yes, it was a nice short touchdown run by Kenneth Gainwell. And the Philadelphia Eagles use a strong second half to take care of business. 31-17 at home over the Miami Dolphins. So the Eagles moved to 6-1, improving to 3-0 at home, and putting some of that bad blood of the Week 6 loss to the Jets to bed. And Greg is a great finish for this team because after a pick 6 by Hurts in the third quarter, it's 17-17, and then Philly did what a true Super Bowl contender does against another big-time opponent. They just took control.
I think this was a major step forward for the Eagles to get to 5-1, to 6-1 rather, because they checked a lot of boxes. Neither of these teams had really played quality opposition. If you look at the 5 wins the Dolphins had against soft teams, the one time they played another good team, they got smoked. Philadelphia comes into this game, and they know they're catching the Dolphins at the right time. Xavier Howard is out. The offensive line is injured. They lose Isaiah Wynn right off the bat, and they looked like the better team. But I think it's a box check for Sean Desai, their defensive coordinator, who's just kind of learning on the job, who comes up with a really good game plan. It's a box check for their defensive line. If you're going to make all that money, let's get after the quarterback who's the hardest to get after in the league. And they did. They hit him 6 times. Tua got rid of the ball quickly, plenty, but they got after him. And then Jalen Hurts, who's been a different player this year, but I think this game was emblematic of that. Like, his highs are higher, and he has way more lows. He already has more turnovers this year than he had all of last year.
Whoa.
But the highs are pretty goddamn special. And that 42-yarder to A.J. Brown was great. The throw on the run, what was it, on the third down? Was that also to Brown in the first half, or to Devonta Smith? Like, he made some really special plays in this game, and that was more than enough to get the win.
Yeah, that is a crazy stat about Hurts.
10 turnovers versus 8. Yep.
It's week 7.
Yep.
So yeah, another way to put it is he's been more inconsistent than a year ago. And tonight, though, like, he, after that pick 6, when the game looked like it could potentially slip away, the offense kind of put it together and took care of business. And I think this was a performance that on two sides, the Eagles, where we're trying to figure out, who they are and whether these issues on offense are serious issues or just a team that's still relatively early in the season and figuring themselves out with a new offensive coordinator. On the Dolphins side, I think it's a very fair thing to ask, Greg, that there's no doubting that this is a special offense when things are humming. But once again, now it was to the Bills in week 4, and now the Eagles here in week 7 when it was time to really ball out against a big-time team. They don't really show up. 20 points against the Bills, 17 against the Eagles, and questions will persist about whether they are able to be the team they need to be when it matters against the opponents when they step up. They got the Chiefs in 2 weeks, by the way.
In Germany, that's a big-time game for NFL Network getting one of the games of the year. Lucked out with
send us. It's not too late.
Schedule makers.
Book a flight.
Look, the Dolphins got 12 first downs in this game. Now they're a team that gets a lot of chunk plays, but tonight, Sean Desai, as I mentioned, did a good job. Even though they gave up a lot of throws over the middle, Tyreek Hill has a long of 27. Cedric Wilson has a 29. Waddle doesn't get anything over 16. They prevented the big plays. The Dolphins are unlikely to be one of the great offenses of all time. That's a ridiculous bar to go after. Can they be the best offense in the NFL this year? They can, but you need to be better than 12 first downs, 244 yards on a day where I know your Dolphins fans are going to point out, look, we're missing Teron Armstead. Newsflash, you're always missing Teron Armstead.
Sure.
He's out for half the season, almost every season.
Every team is missing key guys every week. That's
right.
the NFL.
And that's part of Armstead. And then said Wynn gets hurt. And so can you work around it? I thought Tua made some really special throws in this play. I mean, they could have been smoked in this game. It actually, in a different scenario, it could have not been closer. He had a great 3rd and 9 in the first quarter, which saved them near the goal line. He also had a 3rd and 18 late in the second quarter, which was just an absolute dime, and they end up getting a touchdown right before the half, in part because of that 3rd and 18. But he was not convincing otherwise, and to me, the biggest play of the entire game was he leaves one up for grabs that Darius Slay picks off, just left it in the air too long. At first, it looks like a touchdown. Then it very well could have been a pass interference, so they got a little bit of a...
The linebacker just railroads the receiver.
And then Slay intercepts it, and it was almost like the official got distracted by the interception. But either way, just the timing was just a little bit off, and this whole thing of Tua MVP, it's you got to play better in the bigger games. And he didn't play bad in this game, but they weren't enough. The best part of this game were the 2 Philly Lions. They've been the last 2 seasons, they are the dominant force in the NFC.
Yeah, there's a 3rd and 8. Tua drops a gorgeous bucket pass TD to Tyreek Hill, who runs through bracketed coverage. And again, it just showed with 39 seconds to play in the half. It just shows you how different he is. But Tyreek Hill also had a huge drop. That would have been a back pocket touchdown. That they lose that, and then a blown-up call by the officials on the next play, a no call on a 4th down pass turns the ball over. Now,
they get the pick six.
The football gods step in and go, whoa, pump the brakes there. Pick 6 right after that, so things kind of get evened out there. But in general, yeah, that was kind of, to me, when I was thinking about the Dolphins, they just have to take their game to a higher level because they're built right now if you're someone who's doubting them, you are going to run up. You're just going to run up the score against these bad teams. But we're now seeing maybe a trend here of them getting punched in the mouth against bigger opponents. So, the AFC East. Yes, the AFC was it though? The AFC East is a little bit interesting, Greggy.
Oh, you were enjoying this one. You did not want your Dolphins. What? So the Jets.
So they got
a break here from the Patriots. Your buddies, the Patriots, helped them out today.
My buddies, the Patriots. Yes, they knock off the Bills. So the Bills are now 4-3. Dolphins fall, so they're 5-2. And the Jets on bye pick up a half game on both teams at 3-3. Very interesting. Who is the favorite in this division? I guess I don't know. I guess Miami. I'm not shaken that much by. This is a tough spot to go on the road on Sunday night after the loss that the Eagles had. It felt like it was kind of stacked against them with Armstead out. They could not get the running game going at all. They had -8 rushing yards, the Dolphins, in the first quarter, which is their worst since 2013. So in a lot of ways, it was kind of uphill climb for them. Tough game, but I'm not hitting the panic button. Put it that way.
I think the Bills are still the favorites, but they're 1-2 in the division with losses to the Jets and the Patriots. So it is a strange season. The Dolphins have to feel good that they have a couple games in the loss column, or a game in the loss column in hand, but they got smoked by the Bills. And an interesting thing happened today, just standings in general, including the Patriots. All these one-win teams won, Dan. The Patriots got their second win.
Mm-hmm.
The Broncos got their second win. The Giants got their second win. The Bears got their second win. So if you're the Bears, you're loving life that you own that Panthers draft pick. That's a nice solid number one. You got the Cardinals, but just big picture, like a lot of these teams at the bottom got wins.
Parity like a python around its prey. Even tighter its grip on the NFL. Two last things for me. Once again, the third and short, fourth and short setup for the Eagles is beyond flawless. I will say one thing, and listen to me, Eagles fans, Philadelphia people, sports fans who have it's a very nice time to be alive in Philadelphia as a sports fan with the Phillies and the Eagles. You don't get it. No, it's not brotherly shove. You don't get it. I know you want it to be brotherly shove, but it's the tush push. And you got to live with that. That's the name that history will remember it by. Have you noticed this? They're trying to make it a thing.
Yeah.
They're trying to change the name because they don't think that's a cool name. They're like, brotherly shove, that's a cool name. You don't get it.
I like that the NBC tried to split the difference, and on the graphic tonight, they say they were 4 for 4 on the QB push play. I was like, come on.
Nobody wins there.
But they were 4 for 4. It's remarkable how many situations they are in like that. And, they go for it. They had to take a timeout because Sirianni changed his mind, thought better of it, was going to punt it away in a one-score game.
Right, that was bizarre.
Midway through the fourth quarter. Well, it's not that bizarre, though, because they're on their own 25. It's not that much earlier in football history.
There's not a lot of thinking going on in the NFL anymore. It's all data-driven.
Right, but
the decision is made.
Yeah, but
it's an 82 versus 79% win probability to go for it.
Yeah,
so
but
teams go for it.
I disagree because I think 31 other teams would have punted that, or maybe like 29 other teams. But because they have this superhuman play that can never be stopped, they do it, and no one else can.
What do you mean?
Do it.
Tush push.
It is the tush push, and then they go on these long drives. It's been an inconsistent offense, but man, they go on these long drives. I got another thing. You had a second thing.
Well, my second thing, real quick, is no, you do your thing, and then I'll do one more.
I just want Eric to remind me who won the lock-off tonight.
Yeah,
I locked
Sessler,
it
by
up.
the way. The bad form by Sessler. He said he had something to take care of this morning. I was like, oh, no problem, because it's a long season. We got different things in our lives. But I forgot that there was a lock-off. You can't abandon your post. You can't abandon your post on a lock-off.
No, and I mean he's abandoning a post in these lock standings. I think he's 3 back. He needed this.
Did he do it on? Was there more to it? Remember the Kaiser Sose Sessler that we discovered in the draft a few weeks back? Did he get bad vibes about how this game would turn out? Yeah. Does that explain
Well, that's
the
your
empty
opinion.
He is not thrilled. I know
Well
from hearing from him even before this game started that he jumped out of his Browns lock.
Never jump out of the
But
lock.
maybe it was ball don't lie. He's not here for the lock off, and ball don't lie.
I have to say, it disgusts me to say it, but I feel like you're in a little bit of a groove in the locks right now, and I don't feel overly confident. In fact, I'm almost ready to kind of call it.
Oh, this is
because there's no way at this point that we're going to catch you because you're just.
This is like, break out the locks playbook from Dan. It's like once he falls 2 back, he breaks out this old canard. Give me a break.
Last one, and maybe this is me showing my age, but is it just me or are all these 80s throwback uniforms better than all the current ones? Like every team, I saw it with the Giants today. I see it with the Jets. I see it with the Eagles tonight. They're pretty. They're nice. They're
the Kelly
smooth.
Greens
They're
are
clean.
particularly beautiful. They're among my favorite uniforms in sports history.
Tell me one
Randall
kind of
Cunningham
throwback
back
uniform that's been that's popped up recently that you're like, oh, that's not an upgrade over what they usually wear. Look at the Patriots, Pat Patriot.
That's better. How about those Bumblebee uniforms by the Steelers? But that was like
That's
throwing
different.
it back to like the 40s.
No, that was ridiculous.
That's
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those
you're right.
70s, 80s.
They're always better.
Yeah, whatever. It's, everything's cyclical. All right, that's good. Thank you to everybody for checking us out. We have a big week coming up on Around the NFL because the trade deadline's around the corner, so we're going to have a special trade deadline episode with Mike Garafolo, who's as plugged in as anybody in the league, and some other fun coming up, as well as more NFL Plus goodness. We have our Game of the Week rewatch, which is going to be Browns.
Colts, that's going to be a wild one.
Colts. Sessler will be there for that, I bet. So be there Monday. A lot of content and our Monday night recap and news. Wow, we're busy. Heed the call.